Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Bill Gustin in Miami, Florida, captain with Miami-Dade Fire Rescue Department. And we welcome you to another monthly installment of our Hangout. Just right off the top of my head, I got to give a shout out to a couple of buddies of mine from Key Hose. If you're interested in hose and you're thinking about either improving or replacing some of your hose, you'll never ever go wrong with Key. And like my buddy Dave Hibben, former DCFD Engine 10 captain, and Mark Lighthill, former battalion chief from Brevard County, Florida. Most of the employees of Key are firefighters, so it's hose that's made by firefighters for firefighters. So today we have, it says Ryan Lamping, but once again, I believe Clark Lamping has hijacked his son's computer. I would like you to just go ahead and just quickly introduce yourself. But Clark, I think you have a little story for us, correct?
I do, yeah. So yeah, in my house, we're doing online learning now. So no electronics in my house are mine own anymore. It looks like NASA out there with all the computers lined up for a 13-year-old and a 60-year-old. We're launching rocket ships or something. I don't know, but I know I don't have a laptop or a desktop anymore to my name. So Clark Lamping, I work in Clark County Fire Department, which is Southern Nevada. Been on the job for almost 23 years now. Captain, Engine 38, a little bit of the suburbs, moved away from Las Vegas Boulevard, had enough finally after 17 years on the Boulevard. And the other day had a very exciting day. We got our first grab with my company at Engine 38. So we had a 90-year-old man upstairs in a bedroom. Family had a kitchen fire on the stove. Stove extended up into the microwave, destroyed the microwave into the cabinets. They did have sprinklers. It was a townhome, 2-story townhome, about 1,500 square feet. The sprinklers did activate, did not extinguish the fire, but it kept the fire in the kitchen. And we pulled up. We had good intel that there was in fact a person trapped. I did as much of a 360 as I could. Looked in the back window, met the occupants. They said absolutely, there's a 90-year-old man in a bedroom upstairs. So I had 2 other firefighters with me. One was a brand new rookie who we had for 3 months. He's been working with us for 3 months. And we take our rookie training very, very seriously. So we've been working with this kid, he's 21 years old, and working real hard with this kid. And so finally, it was his last shift with us, and it was the night of his last shift with us before they shipped him out. And we got this grab. So load up, we went in what we call rescue mode, which means we go in for the person. We don't have a hose line with us. Next engine right behind us came in, engine 29. They pulled a line right behind us. We're going interior rescue mode with myself and 2 firefighters. And I work with engine 29 very closely. We share a border. Good guys, good firemen, good captain. And I looked over my shoulder and I never had to say a word. I just gave him a nod, and that nod was asking him, "You're going to keep this fire off us, right?" And he made eye contact with me and he gave me a nod, and he let me know without saying a word that, yes, we got your back. And we opened the door. We went straight through the kitchen. Fire was on the left side. We went straight past the fire, right upstairs. And engine 29 went right in behind us with the hose line and took care of the fire for us. Got upstairs.
And who is the culprit? Who started the fire?
Well, the guy said he had a big dog. And he said the dog, they had food on the stove. The dog jumped up to get the food and turned the stove on, is what his story was.
I believe it, Clark.
Yeah.
I believe it. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I've read about this, and in fact, I'm sure Sam or Chief Halton here has experienced it, or at least heard of it from somebody else's experience. But yes, a dog jumping up on it. And Sam, can you introduce yourself? But also, I'm interested to hear how your son is doing on the job.
Captain with Wichita Fire. My boy is doing good. He got with a great company. I was very pleased with the company he went to. They're going to train with him every day. They're going to continue to work with them. They're the kind of company that no matter how insignificant the alarm is, they're going to do a hot wash, talk about things that, the what ifs, things they could have done better. He hasn't got into a good sticky job yet, but they'll come.
And Chief Halton, you got pretty much have your finger on the pulse of the fire service. I've been talking up with my friends around the country. This country is burning up. Everybody. I don't know if it's because too many people are home because of the COVID or what, but the number of fires on Miami-Dade has skyrocketed.
So
Serious fires.
So my chief
Serious
is
fires.
my chief is with me right now, Bill. And to your point, just the other day, how big was that house, Chief?
3,000 square foot.
3,000 square foot. Just here in Owasso, Oklahoma, lit up like a Roman candle. And the well, that was in Limestone. And the Owasso boys, they had a guy smoking at home with oxygen. It blew up, killed him. Sent a couple of guys to the hospital. Luckily, they're okay. But just to your point, Bill, yeah, everywhere around us. The Claremore guys had one the other night, and Tulsa guys are just every day.
Yeah.
So you're right. It's fires are. It'd be interesting to see what the numbers come out for the shutdown, because
Really.
I think they're going to be very high.
And there's two things that I think are a myth, at least as far as I'm concerned. Don't worry about this building. It's sprinklered. We'll never have a serious fire. Don't worry about it. It's sprinklered. Secondly, fires are down. Fires are down compared to what? Not on any fire department that I know of. Fires are up. Now, the root cause, I don't know.
I'll tell you what is amazing though. When you look at the response profiles and the extinguishment times, which is one of the things that we kind of look at a lot here at Fire Engineering anyway, really amazing work for the volume of fire that people are now managing effectively, because, people are really getting phenomenally capable, very at extinguishing large volumes of fire quickly, and across the country. I don't care where you are.
Part of that is that we're losing the paranoia that running out of water in the tank is like the worst thing that could possibly happen.
Hey,
now,
if 500 gallons fast doesn't put out the fire, 500 gallons slow ain't the answer.
Right. Now, UL, and this is what we're going to talk about today, the UL, NIST, ATF, FDNY, that spearhead this research, they recommend do not delay securing a fire attack to establish a water supply. For a residential, yes. The discount auto parts at 4 o'clock in the morning pushing black smoke, no, because that fire, there's a dragon in there, and when you let the dragon out, we better be able to deal with it. Go ahead. I know you got something on your mind.
Yeah, and I take the opposing view here to UL. I think that, again, everything is context dependent. You know what I mean? If you're assured that it's food on the stove and you think you got limited cabinet or whatever, and you've got, backup that's, staffed and expected within a very short period of time, then I think that's a check you might want to consider writing. Otherwise, I'm from the old Tom Brennan school of thought. If you're going to trust somebody else to get your water, I got some swampland in South Jersey you might be interested in, because you're a fool, in my opinion.
Yeah, I hear you.
Always get your water.
I hear you, and it's like the 2.5 for high standpipe operations.
Because the problem becomes, Bill, is then that becomes what you do, right? And in a stressful moment, you might divert to that, irrespective of how much experience, how much knowledge, how much time on the job. And I had a guy do that, a great guy who ended up becoming chief of a major department in the Southwest. Super guy. Well, he won't mind me telling you. His name was Jim Breen. He ended up becoming chief of Albuquerque, but he was a super experienced captain. Rolled in on a super Walmart with smoke rolling out the doors and went on tank water through the.
Oh no.
But
What line did he have, Chief? Was that the 1 3/4 or 2.5?
I think it was even 1 3/4. It was the whole enchilada. Yeah.
And the problem with that, Chief, and I actually teach our officer candidate school, and I teach commercial firefighting, and the whole class is I compare residential firefighting to commercial firefighting. And just because 92% of the time we can handle a fire with an 1 3/4 fog nozzle cross lay, we go in the front door, we break the residential lock, we turn right, we put 150 gallons on the mattress fire, we're outside high-fiving in the front yard in front of the homeowners. just because that works 92% of the time, right? When we get one of these commercial jobs, we need to, and my message is slow down. Just like the technical rescue team. Does the technical rescue team, do they jump off the rig and jump right into the trench and start shoveling without any shoring? Absolutely not. Why? Because it's dangerous, because technical rescue, it can get you killed or hurt way more quickly than a fire. How about the hazmat team? Does the hazmat team pull right up into the product, jump out and stand there and have a conversation how we're going to handle this? Or do they stand back and take a look through binoculars and find out what we have, what kind of PPE do we need? Is this water reactive? That's what they do because it's dangerous. You need to high-rise firefighting. Same thing. Slow down. Commercial firefighting. Slow down.
I agree with Clark, and so here's my point. Unless you think it's an obvious life-saving hazard and time is of the essence, and you need to move that line through. And I get the faster we put the water on the fire. I'm all for that. But you can have a crew member. You can have one person pulling a stretch, especially on a residential, and then the other two, making the hookup, or one person advancing to the plug. And then we've got a district that's plugged and unplugged. So now if you've got to establish a water supply with a shuttle operation, then I can see going on tank while you're setting that up. But if you've got to plug 300 feet or 200 feet or 150 feet, no, I ain't in.
The benefit we have at this point is everything we have has got compressed air foam on it. So you pull a 2,000 gallon tanker up and plug into the side of that engine with 2,000 gallons of water and compressed air foam, you can put out 95% of the fires that you're going to roll up on, other than the big box stores that's blowing and going, without using half of that tank. I mean, 1,000 gallons of water with compressed air foam will put out almost all of the residential fires we run.
I like to think that Class A foam is the gift that keeps on giving, because rather than just having the water fall off of the fuel,
we use it on every fire we have.
And it is I'll give you a good word, oleophilic. It wants to go to carbon. It wants to go to carbon. My department makes this mistake all the time. They'll have a deep-seated fire in a warehouse or a bunch of tires in a scrapyard, and they'll use 3% AFFF. The AFFF, man, is made to form a barrier against carbon. You want something that's going to attract the water and hold it and break its surface temperature tension.
Tension.
Tension. And a lot of folks don't understand that, a little bit of Class A, you reach the point of diminishing returns. 0.1 to 1% is usually plenty. You go over 1%, it's really not going to be as effective. You'd think it's a 1-for-1, but it isn't. Chief, what we're going to talk about today, and I want you to participate with us, is we're all students of the fire service. And we would have to have our head under a rock not to be aware of an abundance of research that's been taking place over about the last 10, 15 years. And I gotta give a shout out to FDNY, and also specifically FDNY, our brother Mike Dugan, who is having a birthday today. His wife is taking him out to an undisclosed location for his birthday, and happy birthday, and God bless you, Mike. I believe you're 65 today. So I said, don't sweat it. None of us can make these every month. But, the work that FDNY did at Governor's Island, they spearheaded some of this research, specifically attacking a basement fire other than trying to go down the stairs, okay? Trying to get it from a window or a build code door, door control, transitional attack, how to direct streams from the outside. And I do think, Chief Halton, one of the reasons that we are becoming so effective with a limited supply of water is because we've learned how to apply it properly and where it really needs to go. And we're painting, water mapping these ceilings, we're cooling fire gases, And the fire gases, although we have expanding steam, the contraction of the fire gases is actually greater than the expansion of steam. So they kind of cancel each other out.
Well,
Things like,
to your point, Bill, and I think there's a couple of kudos we need to throw out here, just so we had, so long before UL came into it. As a matter of fact, I just sent a photograph to Chris Hasbrook, who was the initial contact with UL that we had, who now is one of the, he's a major big boss guy at UL. I think he's Kerber's boss's boss. So anyway, Hasbrook ran into us in Chicago, and what we were doing in Chicago was we were doing the pressurizing the stairwells using the MVUs, the mobile ventilation units, the big fans, to see if we could pressurize stairwells to do evacuations. And so FDNY and Chicago, they were both involved from the get-go. I mean, Chief Orozco couldn't have been more gracious, and so Tracy was there, Cirillo was there, Healy from FDNY, who are guys that you can't. I mean, you want to talk to three guys who know what they're doing. But then you had Pete Van Dorp, and you had I'm blanking on half the Chicago guys we had there, but you had you had everybody from Chicago involved in there too. Head of training at the time. Oh God, super guy. I'll remember later on in the conversation. But anyway,
you mean Dalton, young fella, Dalton.
It was an FDNY Governor's Island was probably 7 years later, and so Chris kind of hooked up with us then, and so it was great. And Dan Majikowski and the folks over at NIST prior to Dan, and the folks at NIST right now, they're still doing phenomenal cutting edge work in terms of getting us the research. So to the earlier conversation where I think it's important, and to Bill's point, and I think we need to talk about the floors, and we need to talk about all of the specifics of it. But what I think is really important is to our debate earlier about, don't delay, fire attack for water supply. Okay, you can put out a dictum like that, but I would rather have the research just put out there and let fire chiefs like Chief Long, captains like, chiefs like Chief Hittle, Chief Lamping, Chief Gustin. Hey guys,
What's going on, Chief?
good to see you, boss. Come on in. How you doing?
Pleasure to meet you, sir.
This is all mine.
Tyler
Son down.
Perez.
Sorry, the guys just got back from a run.
Not a problem.
So anyway, I think that the application of the research is up to the troops, in my opinion. It's the guys with skin in the game. It's the guy in the arena. And I think hard, fast rules like don't delay water supply is one of those examples where we need to be careful about interpretation.
Yeah, I'll go along with that. Again, I just want to clarify that what I said though, the commercial building, I want a water supply for the discount auto parts at 4 o'clock in the morning. I worked for a chief that I really admired, and he had a philosophy. He says, Bill, there's two types of fires we go to. There's the fires that we aggressively go to the fire. We go inside the building to find the dragon and slay the dragon. And then there's the fires primarily in closed up large commercial buildings that are closed up. There's no employees, and it's an oxygen deficient, ventilation limited fire. Let's be careful making entry, because there's a dragon in there someplace and he's sleeping, and it could take anywhere from 100 to 200 seconds for that air to tunnel. And you talk to guys that have been on those types of fires, and they will tell you that you can feel the air rushing past, feeding the dragon, and it could take from 100 to 200 seconds. So in those types of fire, rather than go to the fire, maybe we should let the fire come to us, and we'll fight it on our terms with our heavy artillery. So it all has to do, in some of the biggest mistakes and biggest line of duty deaths we've ever had in the history of the fire service have been skewed tactics, using quick attack residential tactics when we should be using commercial strategy with large lines directed primarily from the outside with limited penetration into the building. I can't hear you guys, so I hope you're not talking any any smack about me.
I was telling them that I was telling them who you were. I said, that's Bill Gustin. He's at the Shady Rest Home.
Yes. Yes, I'm having one of my senior moments right now. So, oh, guys, I hope you got.
So
I
this
love Oklahoma.
Firefighter Minor and Firefighter Perez, Limestone Fire.
Perez.
Yes, sir.
You need to be in Miami, man. What are you doing with a name like Perez? Comprende español?
No.
No.
Not here.
So Perez came in so I could give him a haircut.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, Perez, I like your hair. You know, you Perez, you don't go to the barbershop. I tell you, you go to the beauty parlor, don't you? That guy's not just handsome; he's borderline pretty or gorgeous.
That's good. My wife went to the beauty parlor, I guess.
Well, you know, you're a stranger in paradise. What are you doing, a Hispanic with all those gringos?
I'm originally from Phoenix, and then somehow I wandered out here. So
Okay. Hey, I wanted to go over some of the things that we have taken, and I like your philosophy there, Chief Halton. Take the data, the raw data, and apply it. Not so much, and then we'll apply it to our tactics. I'm reading your lips again, and they're saying, that crazy old man. Let me just go through some of these things. Door control prior to entering with a hose line. Our medic rescue's got an officer and 2 firefighters on it. I can remember at morning briefing over breakfast and coffee. All right, this is how we're going to do it. You guys get there first. Bust every door in the place, get it wide open, and if it's pumping black smoke, start taking that glass. We got to get that smoke to lift if we're going to give any occupants that are on the floor a fighting chance. I remember those words came out of these lips. Would I say that today? No. Required coordination with ventilation and water application? Now, alternative tactics for wind-driven fires, attic fires, basement fires. Door control with VEIS. Let me ask you fellas from the Tulsa area. Guys, do you have in your area newer homes that have high efficiency air conditioning systems that have an air return register and ductwork in the bedrooms? Hence, you cannot isolate the bedrooms completely with the door.
Yes.
You cannot isolate the bedrooms. And would you say, like, for instance, Chief, that 3,000 square foot house, were the bedrooms all grouped together, or was the master on a different floor or in a different part of the house than the rest of the bedrooms?
There was 2 bedrooms downstairs and 4 upstairs, but all the bedrooms upstairs were scattered on all 4 corners.
This guy must work for fire engineering or something like that. That's quite a shack there, bro. Oh yeah, look at that. All right, let me just go on here. Venting windows without fire suppression, establishing redundant water supplies and positioning heavy streams ready to flow when encountering a closed up commercial building or whenever a ventilation limited fire is a possibility. Directing streams for transitional attack, and operating differently at lightweight construction as we would legacy construction. Your newer construction there, I'm going to have to guess, Chief, that and fellas, that your floors are supported by either engineered I-joist or parallel cord floor trusses.
On the second floors, that's pretty common. So, and most of them now are those engineered I-beams. That's what we're seeing in all the newer stuff. And we've probably got 6 or 8 neighborhoods going up right now, all built that way, as well as these, the modern day taxpayer, the platform +2. And they're seeing more of the cross sectionals and less of the wood I-beams. So it's an interesting mix, and then we've got homes in this first due that are more than 100 years old.
Yeah.
See, that's dangerous for your guys, because in the morning they could fight a fire in a dwelling where they could stay indefinitely in it and on the roof indefinitely, and the building would not collapse. and then go and use those same tactics in the afternoon with a lightweight truss supported roof, parallel cord floor trusses or I-joists. And it's in the case of the I-joists, it's through the door, through the floor if you have basements. And I know you got basements because you got tornadoes.
Luckily, we don't have many basements under residences here. Everybody has a storm shelter outside. But this area, most of our first due on all 3 stations is setting on a solid sheet of limestone. So we don't go very deep here for anything.
Yeah, and part of the problem for that, for the type of soil we have, is the water. So in other words, if you dig a hole like a basement, it's going to flood, and there's just no way to make drainage from it. So that's our issue. But to your point, I'd love to hear Clark and Sam kind of opine a bit. I know Sam's done a great deal of thought, and I know Clark has as well. Chief, if you don't mind, when you mentioned the door control, which is something I'd like my guys to hear more about, because I grew up, when I started and you started, Bill, door control was a position. You always had somebody that was door control because our gear wasn't what the gear is today. And so we needed somebody to keep the fires, to keep it from feeding the fire. In the late 70s, early 80s, when our gear got a lot better, that's when door control started to disappear. And so it'd be interesting. I know Clark with Clark County, you've got such a gigantic mix of occupancy as well. You've got casinos, and then you've got shotgun shacks. Are you guys doing door control? And Sam, are you doing door control, as Bill mentioned earlier?
Yeah, you want me to start off, Clark?
Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
All right. Yeah. I mean, we've been practicing door control for a while, but I want to emphasize one of the things we do is we actually practice door control. Unfortunately, the fire service has taken somebody else's adaptation of some of the studies and turned that into door closed. Door control does not necessarily mean door closed. Yeah, if we're putting the line in service, absolutely. Let's try to control that air. We've been told for a long time, he who controls the oxygen controls the fire. Not new to us. We don't need big laboratories to figure that out, do we? However, once we actually go in and we have that coordinated ventilation out in front of that fire, then we need to open up that door as much as we can, because I think of it like a straw inside of a cup. If I were to take a straw and put it inside this Dr. Pepper and I put my finger over it and I pull that out, what happens to the fluid inside that straw? It's going to stay, right? And if I take my finger off of that, it rushes out pretty fast. Door control is doing a variation of my finger on top of that straw to allow the smoke to move at the speed that I want it to. But once again, if I have a ventilation system out in front of me through horizontal ventilation, that we're pushing all of those products of combustion out with our stream and the air that's being entrained behind that line, then I want to be able to replace that volume as quick as I can. Otherwise, I can actually slow that down. Another thing that we're really big on with door control with our vests that unfortunately I don't think gets talked about a lot is, are we teaching our people to actually feel up the door before they shut it? How many times do we see the top of a door burned off on a bedroom? If I just go in there with my head on the carpet, looking at the floor and shut the door, I may not have bought myself any time. I need to know that that door is intact and is going to actually control that fire.
I hear you, man. I hear you, Sam. And I was in a high-rise building last Thursday and looked at a very elaborate smoke control system for a 23-story parking garage with elevators that stack your cars. Huge atrium smoke control system with huge exhaust fans, but you got to have makeup air. And to your point, Sam, unless you're going to be operating in a vacuum, if you're pushing a volume out of a building, something's got to come in behind it. Otherwise, it's not going to move. So yes, you're absolutely right. I like your term, door control. It's more like the door is a damper than it is a door. Sometimes we want it open, sometimes we want it closed. How about you, Clark? Clark, you're muted.
There we go. Am I back?
There you go.
Good. All right.
You're on, man.
When I came on 23 years ago, I actually had an instructor tell me in the academy, take the front door off the hinges. And he would show us how you'd open the door, you'd put your axe in there, and then slam the door in your axe, and you'd blow the wood screws out of the hinges. And he said, throw the door in the front yard, because we don't want that door closing on our fire hose. That would be dangerous. If the door closed on the hose, that would be and it would be hard to find your way out of the building. And that's how we fought fire for years. And now we look back and that, wow, that was, first of all, I can't imagine what the homeowner would say when he sees his front door going right out in the front yard, right? So, yeah. And also, I was on a truck company for several years, and just until recently, you know, we used to go cut a hole. We are very, very heavy vertical ventilation in the Southwest, Clark County, LA County. You know, a lot of stuff that we do comes from the Los Angeles guys, and so we are very, very aggressive vertical ventilation on our structures. So the first truck company on scene goes right to the roof and we used to just go up and start cutting. Captain would take a look and he would try to determine where he wants to ventilate, top of the stairs for your vertical dominant channel, something like that. And he would cut. And there was never any conversation about coordinated ventilation with fire attack. I mean, they'll sort it out. We're going to get up there fast and we're going to relieve those guys inside who are searching and advancing hose. That's how we thought. And now, okay, guys, ready? We're going to cut. Are you ready for us to pop the hole? You ready for us to pop the hole? There's a lot more conversation now, controlling that flow and making sure we don't add too much air to that fire before fire attack is in place and putting water in the fire. So
Mark,
a lot
I
of
agree
things
100%. When you cut a hole in a roof and flames burst out, in short order, that should be followed by steam. You should see steam. If you cut the hole and the fire just keeps roaring out of the hole, you made it worse. At some point, why did you cut the hole in the roof? To facilitate getting water on the fire. So very shortly thereafter, you should see a stream and steam coming out of that hole in the roof. But that's not what I'm seeing in a lot of cases.
Right. Yep.
Well, and I think, so what Clark just said is really important to take us back to the beginning of the conversation. Taking the door off and he throws it to the side, that worked for that guy back then. That worked. So that became his default way to fight that fire, which was working for him. So if we create a default in our minds, in other words, something we do all the time, like you don't worry about securing your water supply, go right to your tank. That goes against what Tommy Brennan used to call thinking firefighters. And Tommy took that term from Dick Sylvia, who took that term from O'Hagan, who took that term from, and you could go down the list of historians. And if you look at the people who wrote about firefighting back then, whether it was Sylvia or whether it was Emanuel Freed, they always talked about the orchestration of fire tactics, not in a linear sequential thing, not ventilate or access. It was never sequentialized. The sequentialization of it became when we went into Rivas and Revisio and all of that, and people started to think that fire tactics were done sequentially. They're not. They're orchestrated. So in other words, they're actually happening simultaneously, but some aspects of that other tactic might happen just a few seconds before. So say it's, access the forcible entry to get to the door. Okay, so those guys or gals might be a little bit ahead on their tactic, but that water supply needs to have been secured and established. Those lines need to be charged and in place. The people who are going to be doing any additional, ventilation to control, the cool air gravity currents coming in low and the hot air gravity currents coming out high, or what we commonly refer to today as flow paths, that needs to all be, orchestrated, if you will, right? Not A leads to B, leads to C, leads to D, because when you've got a great conductor, like say a Chief Long or any of the gentlemen that are with us today, he can look at a fire and say, oh, okay, I want you to do this first. You know what I mean? And that's the orchestration of fire tactics. So that's something else that I think when we're looking at research, remember that models are always wrong, but they're still useful, because all a model tells you is what's true for the model, not what's true all the time or what's true in the real world. So you can take lessons learned from research and modeling and all that other good stuff, but then you need to have a true, conscientious, supported set of eyes on the problem that then go through a series of probabilities. Now, remember, they're just probabilities. We could all be at a fire right now, and with all our UL study and all all of us here have been, well, except for our younger guys, but Greg and I have been watching this since back in the 80s when it was NIST. So when you take all of that time, it's the probability is just a probability. Doesn't mean that applying all of those, assumptions correctly, you're not going to get the answer you're looking for.
And the problem you get into with the people that do A to B to C to D that don't look at it and understand what it's doing, if they walk up and the first thing is, A, take the door off the hinges, and they don't notice that door is puffing smoke and sucking it back in, when they take that door off the hinges, they're fixing to be in the front yard.
Yeah.
Out by the street. So you got to be able to look at it and figure out what's going on with it before you just start down a list and end up getting somebody or yourself hurt.
Chief, how much gallons per minute do you think you're flowing with your CAFs attacking an interior residential fire?
I'm going to say 130 maybe. If we're lucky, that's flowing wide open.
Right.
But
Now,
most of the time we don't use that much.
Yes. Now, Chief, my question is, if the CAFs machinery would fail, could you step up that gallons per minute flow on that line?
Easily. If the compressor or the foam pro fails,
Yes.
you still have water. All you have to, the truck is going to detect that pressure has dropped, and it automatically idles up to keep that pressure there.
And you're using what, a 7/8 inch solid tip?
Right now we're using TFT cast nozzles that you can select on the tip, whether it's foam or water.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's a Darley pump system on all the apparatus, uniform across the whole department, and it kicks in the minute the foam stops, the water kicks in, and everybody knows they take their GPM up.
Hey, Perez.
Yes,
I
sir.
came from Chicago area, and the first pump I ever ran was a Darley Champion front mount pump. They are so fun to run. When you engage that clutch off of the flywheel and you see that shaft starting to turn, and there's the valves, and you can see everything right there. There's no pump panel. The pump is naked. If you ever get a chance, bro, you have anybody around there have any front mount pumps?
We
just got rid of one.
Yeah, we just sold one.
We had a 1250 GPM Darley front mount pump up until a year ago.
Yep.
Did you ever get a chance to use it, Perez?
I didn't. Right when I got on, they sold it on me.
Had too many trucks.
And remember, one of the key components in the success here at Limestone is that it's the whole assembly. And part of that assembly is our great sponsors, Key Hose. And we want to make sure
yes, it is. And yes, kind of an oxymoron.
Well, don't talk about Sam that way, but
No. I want to talk about my two buddies at Key Hose. Dave Hibben from DCFD Engine 10 and Mark Lighthill, who are very well-respected fire officers. I don't think a week goes by, especially right now, because I'm revising our high-rise SOP, not by myself, but collectively. And we have a lot of hose questions. We need some hard numbers, and we get those hard numbers. Now, I will say this about, I learned my lesson from Mark Lighthill. I was so frustrated because every time I would do a float test with our new 2-inch standpipe hose, I'd say, damn it, it's 5 pounds off. It's 10 GPM off. And he told me, he said, Bill, will you quit obsessing about flow tests? He says, flow test numbers are an amalgamation of hundreds of flow tests that we put together. You're never going to have exactly the same figures unless you're using pipe, because hose relaxes, it ages, the lining begins. Your friction loss will be somewhat higher when you first get the hose, and then it relaxes. So it's now when we're teaching our standpipe operations, Inline gauge, is it important? Sure. But Perez, I have a feeling, how long you been on the job now?
2 years almost.
Okay, I have a feeling I could put a nozzle in your hand without telling you the pressure. And you would be able to tell me based upon the reach, quality of the stream, and the nozzle reaction, if you had a good stream flowing 180, 250, I think you could figure that out. And you know what? I'll take your opinion and judgment over that inline gauge any day. So key hose, kudos to Key. Take the Key challenge. You can't Key hose. Try their Combat Ready as their top of the line, but they now have a smaller version, which is actually a true 1.75 inch. I believe it's called the Combat Sniper. And then they have their true ID hose, which is kind of a throwback from the old days with a double jacket and a separate rubber liner. I think it's EPDM. You know, nobody's using natural rubber, so it's a synthetic. So, Chief, I like what I hear when you tell me that you have the capability at any moment to increase your gallons per minute should the caps fail, because it could fail. And I have, being a student of the fire service, but not having any specific personal experience, the guys that know cats will say, make sure you have the capability to flow 150 gallons a minute or 250 gallon a minute lines in accordance with NFPA 1710. If the caps works, it's a great day. If the caps doesn't work, we immediately just crank up and increase our gallons per minute.
I can honestly say we've had compressed air foam here since 1997 and have not had one fail on a fire yet. And we've got a ladder, 3 engines, and a rescue truck that's got it on it right now, and have never had one fail. We've sold 3 engines that had it on it. It was still running when the truck left here.
Yeah. And there's a lot of good manufacturers. Okay, there's not, and this is not to slight any other manufacturer, but Darley is an amazing company. I've actually been doing some consulting work in the Bahamas, and they have reverse osmosis for their cisterns. Or the cisterns are rainwater. They have above ground reservoirs for their water supply. What they need is a skid mounted portable pump. Well, you know, the variety that you can get from Darley on that is amazing. And also, I believe Darley is making the device that goes in the C-130. It's a modular type pump device. So, we're all here. Okay, good. I was just talking, I know you're talking smack about me again.
Not you, never.
Okay.
Well, then it must be Sam, because I know you're not talking about me.
And you owe me you and Gustin owe me a podcast.
Oh, me or Sam?
No, Clark, Sam, and all 3 of you characters owe me one.
And the problem with that, Chief Halton, is I was using I don't remember, it was about 1 year ago. We had that Alpine Motel fire here in Las Vegas. We had the 6 people killed. And I'm friends with the investigators. That was City of Las Vegas. That wasn't Clark County. So City of Las Vegas, it was their jurisdiction. And they gave me a bunch of information. They gave me a lot of pictures. And they said that it's still a criminal investigation and everyone's lawyered up. And he made me promise. He says, you cannot release these. You cannot publish these pictures, anything, because believe it or not, the lawyers never came and asked the City of Las Vegas Fire Department investigators for any information. So we haven't been asked yet, and we don't offer it. So he says, I'm sitting on a wealth of information about he knows everything, right? He's got everything, and no one asked him. He says, I cannot have you release these pictures. So I was going to teach it at United Fire Conference. But I was going to preface it with, hey, guys, I can't distribute any of this information, so I cannot release that to the web. I can't do a podcast on that and not control where the information goes.
Well, I still want to have the three of you on that National Fireman's Journal podcast, so keep that in the back of your heads. But
Absolutely.
Let's go back to the research, Bill.
Okay, well, attic fires. I didn't think it would work in Florida because we don't have very high peaked roofs because no snow load. And also our soffits are, at least in Southeast Florida, are very robust. They are wire lath and plaster. There's vents, of course, but they're wire lath and plaster that are difficult and dangerous to pull because when you start to pull them, they come down like a stack of dynamos. T111 plywood or a very heavy gauge sheet metal. So I kind of dismissed it, but I have to say I was teaching in near the Kennedy Space Center a couple of weeks ago for our brothers in the Space Coast there, Brevard County, Palm Bay, Melbourne, and they have had good luck with taking the soffits down and directing the stream up into the soffit and having the water find its way up the truss bay, if you will, all the way to the ridge. And for them, it works. So maybe it doesn't work for us, but it works elsewhere. So I think that's it's got a Chief Halton. I think the way that we fight attic fires is nuts. We come into somebody's house that is pristine. The place is perfect. There's nothing. It's clear as a bell. We poke holes in their ceiling, rip out bats of fiberglass insulation or cellulose blown in insulation, and trash their house and direct the stream. If we could get it from a gabled end, if we could get it from a from the eave, I think that the concept of using I don't want to, it's a particular brand, fog nail, but piercing nozzles where we keep the ceiling largely intact. I mean, I think that's a better way to go. What do you guys think?
Well, we take a little bit of a different. We Chief Long outlawed when he was our deputy chief. He outlawed institutionalized vandalism as a tactic. So we take a little more care, and it depends on the volume of fire. But most of the pitched roofs that we have here are like 12s. I mean, they're steep. So you know, if you're going to ladder them, we use the Milwaukee. We'll take a roof ladder. We'll take an access ladder. We'll hang, and so you got two. But most of the times we'll go for the gables, and again, compressed air foam is the weapon of choice. It tends not to load as much. So if you can get good knockdown. The other thing on a lot of these new homes that we're seeing here, that the top of the stair to the second floor, if it's a 2-story, will have a man door to the attic, and we'll use those a lot because that gives you a really manageable way to do it. And we actually still use tarps and runners, and so you know the crews here are really refined, and it goes for all our partners too, whether it's our friends to the north up in Collinsville or our friends to the west in Owasso or Claremore. Everybody has kind of the same mindset. So we found that we haven't done much with piercing nozzles yet, but I know one of the things that the chief's been talking about, we do have some manufactured housing and some mobile homes here, as well as Garth Brooks' place, which is a small, you can tell it's Garth's because he has radial tires on the roof, not just double wides. He has on his double wide, there are radial tires because he makes that kind of scratch. So anyway, we've been talking about that. We've been looking at piercing nozzles, but we haven't really gone too far into them yet, just because where we've really been talking about them, Bill, to be honest with you, is the dual application of car fires. If you can do an engine compartment without, you know, through either the radiator grill face or under the lip of the hood without doing two, you know, that's one way, because the minute you open that hood, it's Katie bar the door, right? So we've been thinking about the dual application there, but we haven't done much with that. But lightning is a big deal here in Oklahoma, and attic fires are bread and butter.
That's probably half of our house fires are lightning strike.
Chief, do you have cellulose insulation in some of your attics?
Oh yeah,
Pretty much
A lot.
every newer house has it.
a lot of it.
Tons of it.
Guys, for you two young guys, the words green and sustainable are not your friends. They are not the firefighters' friends. Because we talk sustainable, we're talking about wood chips glued together. We're talking about grinding up newspapers and cardboard boxes and somewhat treating them for some degree of fire resistance. Good R value, but prone to smoldering combustion. We had an interesting.
I've been on more rekindles from cellulose paper than any other kind of rekindle I've been on. And I tell guys all the time, you have to take every single bit of this down and put foam. We don't have caps, but we have just the age. You have to get every single bit of it down, and you have to put foam on it, and then you have to get a hook and you have to rake it around and make sure that all that paper is saturated. It is terrible. I hate it. As soon as you get in there and you make fire attack and we pull the ceiling and cellulite come down, I shake my head and say, God damn, we're gonna be here all night. It's gonna be all night.
And just so everybody knows, just a quick aside on that, please put in your search engine for PFOA, PFOS free foam. Several major distributors, manufacturers now are carrying that, and I highly recommend that you replace your current PFOA, PFOS type foams with the non-PFOA, PFOS type foams.
Okay, so you're talking about fluorides?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting story. My buddy Chris Ackerman is working Battalion 13. He hears a engine 37 is going with a house assignment for smoke in the attic. The chief knows it's a brand new lieutenant. The 37 gets there and holds up the rest of the companies, and the chief thinks, let me just go in there and take a look. He's got a carbon monoxide detector on his radio sling. He walks into the house and it alarms. Now it's clear as a bell, but it alarms and it will not clear. It was like 50 parts per million. It would not clear. Why? Cellulose insulation, smoldering combustion, carbon monoxide. 2020 hindsight, and the homeowner was livid. You firemen, the fire is out and you're tearing down my ceiling. The fire is out. Can't you see the fire is out? Well, several feet from the point of origin, they make a hole and down comes the flaming cellulose insulation. So it is, Clark, you are so right. It will ruin your day. And what I tell our new officers in our officer development class, whenever you get cellulose, let the chief respond in, because you got a problem and you don't have enough meatballs on your badge. You need somebody with more meatballs on your badge than you do to help you make an informed decision. Oh, bugles. We call them meatballs.
You're getting hungry for lunch if you're talking about meatballs. It's almost 1 o'clock.
No, it's almost 2 o'clock my time, brother, and I got to go back to work.
We're at work.
Hey, are you gonna, Chief Halton? You gonna get me down there? We could have a great time. Get Clark and Sam and we could do some, and then we'll do a podcast on cats, right? Live from Limestone, and we'll have Perez in it, and he's going to wear an extra small wife beater, and he is going to attract legions of adoring females.
I got dibs on taking Perez out to dinner when we go. All right, Perez, you like seafood or steak? What's your preference?
Steak.
So his call sign is Chum.
Chum. Oh boy. All right.
That's what they throw behind the boat to attract the fish. So,
hey, this was great. I am so glad you guys got to participate, and man, you got every reason to be so proud of your department. I have been at your department before. I was there for one of your push-ins. And do you still have the Persh with the?
No. It's gone. You
How
could
much
have
did
had
you
it.
sell it? What's that?
You could have had it.
Oh God. Hey, it had a Waukesha in it, didn't it?
Yes, it
It sure
did.
did. Sure
Yeah.
did.
Yep. With
Yep.
cylinders about that big. Hey, I
Yep.
want to say happy holidays. A Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas and a happy, healthy New Year to everybody. And for our friends, happy Hanukkah and whatever other holiday or faith you celebrate, whatever it is. I hope you have a happy one. And I hope we're all a lot healthier, mentally healthier, and a lot happier and a little bit more relaxed in 2021. I don't expect it, but at least I can hope and pray that it's going to be. And but guys, we're all brothers here, and this just at my point in my career, 48 years in the fire service, meeting young guys and bringing up young guys. Clark, I know you're really big into that. Sam, your son's on the job. It's just a continuum of passing the torch to the next generation. So for Kehoe's Fire Engineering, I wish all of you the very best. God bless you and keep you safe in our most noble of professions.